After strong protests, the government offers more leniency for Chinese spouses in Taiwan to provide key documents. The stakes climb in mass legislative recall campaigns as 6 people face being held incommunicado. Revelations of Chinese espionage at the highest levels continue to rattle Taiwan. Plus, the U.S.-China trade war continues, with both sides insisting they won't back down. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chan. Relief for some Chinese spouses in Taiwan as the government announces a new set of exemptions to a controversial administrative request. It comes after backlash from several groups protesting a recent demand for over 10,000 Chinese spouses and their children to provide documentation or face deportation. Reese Ayers is live from the newsroom with more. Reese, how has the government responded to the uproar?
Well, it seems like they've listened to that growing cacophony of voices criticizing this rather sudden and, as some have argued, unreasonable demand by announcing a new set of exemptions and delays. But let's quickly review actually what the initial demand was. So last week, the Mainland Affairs Council, or MAC, said that over 10,000 Chinese spouses living in Taiwan and their children are missing a document that proves that they've given up their household registration back in China. And that's a key requirement for Chinese citizens seeking to gain civil rights here in Taiwan. And they also said that the people missing those documents have just 3 months to go back to China and get them. Now, just a few hours ago, the MAC held a press conference in Taipei during which they revealed that they revealed 2 extra categories of people who are going to be exempt from those from the demand for documents. So the initial 4 categories were people who couldn't go back for safety reasons. The second one was people who moved to Taiwan before they were 7 years old, people with health issues or disabilities that prevent them going back to China, and people that haven't been back to China since before 2015. Now, the 2 new categories are people over 70 years old and people who maybe just can't afford to go back to China. Now, the MAC also announced a brand new list of groups who can delay submitting those documents, and that includes people who are unable to fly due to personal commitments, such as doing their military service, caregivers for children, sick people or elderly, and anyone who's pregnant. So with these new exemptions and delays, it will save some hassle for some of those eligible. But the MAC ended this press conference by warning those that still have to get those documents that if they don't, they'll face the full force of the law.
So a bit more leniency there from the Mainland Affairs Council, but who are the voices speaking out against these requests and deadlines?
Well, just this morning, there were some emotional scenes outside of Taipei's National Immigration Agency. That's the agency who are actually going to be collecting and handling those missing documents. There was a protest there by the New Party, and that's a party with close ties to the Chinese government. And they invited a Chinese spouse in her 50s who's been living in Taiwan for over 30 years to share her story about not fitting into any of those previous exemption categories, while still having some pretty good reasons to not be able to go back to China, including having lost both of her parents in Shanghai, surviving on a low pension, and also having a daughter with severe disabilities who needs constant care. It seems that she probably will now be exempt from getting those documents, given the new list of exemptions. But it's not only those with close ties to China who have been speaking up. Earlier this week, the Taiwan Immigration Youth Alliance also spoke up to protest, among other things, the 3-month deadline, saying it's basically impossible to know if 3 months is even enough time to get those documents, given the administrative differences between China and Taiwan. Now, the Immigration Agency has said that they'll review all cases, case by case, one by one, considering humanitarian needs and the law, and that they've set up a section on their website specifically catering to Chinese spouses looking for more information. As for how these new allowances and how they'll be received by those who were protesting the original demands, we'll likely hear from them in the coming days.
Thanks for the update, Reese. That was Reese Ayers reporting from our Taipei newsroom. Prosecutors are seeking to detain 6 people connected to Taiwan's main opposition Kuomintang. It comes amid an investigation into suspected forged signatures on several lawmaker recall petitions. Leslie Liao has more.
Prosecutors have carried out sweeping investigations at dozens of opposition Kuomintang branch offices in northern Taiwan. Now they want to detain 6 people affiliated with the party and hold them incommunicado. Detention hearings are scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. The charges: suspicion of forging signatures on petitions to recall lawmakers from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. The DPP and KMT are locking horns in efforts to recall each other's lawmakers. Part of that process involves getting signatures from the public. If enough are collected, they can bring it to a vote to remove legislators from office. Prosecutors say they received a tip about fraudulent signatures on petitions supporting the KMT's recall campaigns. At the heart of the situation, the names of deceased people showing up on the party's petitions, or so-called ghost signatures.
第一阶段针对我的补件，联署前死亡的比例竟然高居全国第一，很明显是大规模的伪造。我希望司法查清楚，到底是谁在背后指使抄名册的行为。
The KMT says prosecutors' actions are politically motivated, and the DPP is using its power to go after the KMT's recall movement.
司法应该是公平正义的代表，在台湾却变成独裁者，变成统治者的大刀，变成他的工具，用来砍向在野党。
The KMT's reaction was immediate and, in one case, extreme. One person leading a recall campaign for the party was summoned to the prosecutor's office for questioning. He showed up brandishing a swastika armband and a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf and was photographed giving a Nazi salute. He's not one of the 6 people prosecutors hoped to detain and was released on bail. But his actions have since drawn condemnation from Israel and Germany's representative offices in Taiwan.
These are in direct contradiction to everything that Taiwanese people believe: democracy, human rights, civil rights, tolerance, coexistence. I strongly condemn and I deeply regret, and I'm very concerned about the use of these Nazi symbols.
The KMT has tried to distance itself from the man. The party's youth league released a statement saying it strongly condemns the use of Nazi symbols as a means of political expression. KMT chair Eric Zhu has indicated he thinks the man was equating the DPP's alleged abuse of power with the authoritarian German regime. The DPP says that the KMT's actions are egregious and merit action.
死亡联署最主要是户政事务所查对出来的结果。台北市政府的选委会主委李泰兴是蒋万安任命的代表，他清楚地说出事实。
Taiwan's Central Election Commission has said that of the 61 recall petitions it received, 41 potentially contain ghost signatures. On Wednesday, the commission announced that both KMT and DPP petitions have come under scrutiny. Those cases have already been forwarded to the authorities. Justin Wu and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's military says it has discovered 62 service members holding Chinese residence permits. Defense Minister Wellington Koo told lawmakers that none of the personnel in question hold a Chinese passport or ID card. The military says officers with residence permits can't be assigned to sensitive areas such as intelligence gathering. Taiwan is seeing an unprecedented level of espionage cases involving the recruitment of active and former military members. Koo says plans are underway to reform the military penal code to counter China's espionage efforts. Taiwan's Defense Minister Wellington Koo has been grilled at the legislature over a string of recent spy cases, some reportedly including people close to former foreign minister. As Rick Glauer reports, Taiwan is facing an uphill battle against Chinese infiltration.
Could a spy for China have infiltrated the inner circles of Taiwan's government? The man, identified here with a red circle, was an aide to Joseph Wu, the country's last foreign minister and current national security chief. He's now detained, suspected of gathering information on Taiwan's leadership and passing it on to China, a cross-strait neighbour which claims sovereignty over Taiwan. Such cases of espionage are on the rise here, with most of the suspects being military personnel. Now feeling the heat, Taiwan's Defense Minister Wellington Koo called to answer questions at the legislature.
政治局在搞什么？我10年来支持你们，这个案子一个直接一个，层出不穷。我们自己当过兵，知道你在营区拿5星旗挥舞，部队有没有烂掉？
To weed out spies, Taiwan is already bringing back military courts, and now Koo says he wants to amend the military's penal code.
投降的这样子效忠的这样子的一个表示的时候，就本身就会构成违反陆海空军刑法。那另外投敌的部分，我们加了阴谋犯跟预备犯的部分。
President Heightened, despised by Beijing for his firm rejection of China's claims over Taiwan, has made combating Beijing's influence and infiltration central to his leadership. This rash of suspected spies coming out of the woodwork could indicate that his efforts against China, also known as the PRC, are working.
There's a claim that the PRC is stepping up its espionage activities. That having been said, with espionage cases coming to the public, of course, they create a lot of trepidation. They create they draw a lot of attention. But the fact that espionage cases are being detected also means that espionage networks are being disrupted, right?
Taiwan's defense ministry warns that China's tactics are changing, increasingly using criminal gangs and religious groups to recruit new spies. It's an evolving threat for the Taiwanese military, trying to protect their credibility and integrity as they lead the country's fight against China. Klein Wang and Rick Laut for TaiwanPlus.
President Lai, who is also chair of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, has promised to root out spies from his party as well. He said party officials must report before and after they travel to China, including Hong Kong and Macau, or meet Chinese officials. The U.S. and China remain deadlocked in their retaliatory tariff sparring match. The White House now says it's waiting for Beijing to play its hand. Joyce Deng has the latest.
The world's largest economy is still in a standoff with its closest rival. U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods remain at 145%, and China's strike back on American goods at 125%, a retaliation match that has sent global markets down. The White House says that it's up to Beijing to make a move.
The ball is in China's court. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them.
U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly said that his relationship with Chinese President Xi Jinping is great, suggesting talks are imminent. Meanwhile, Trump has expanded investigations into potential new tariffs, now targeting imports of critical minerals, a lot of which comes from China. Earlier this month, Beijing already limited exports of 7 types of rare earth minerals, penalizing the U.S. for its high tariff rates. Over in Malaysia, Xi Jinping touched down for his second stop in a 3-country visit to Southeast Asia. The Chinese leader has already signed dozens of deals with Hanoi to boost cooperation and is set to do the same in Kuala Lumpur and Phnom Penh. Beijing says its economy has grown in the first quarter of the year, beating expectations.
国内生产总值31.87万亿人民币。按不变价格计算，同比增长5.4%。
At the same time, it warned that steep U.S. tariffs will add, quote, certain pressures on China's economy. On Chinese social media, AI-generated memes mocking the U.S.'s goal of reviving domestic manufacturing have gone viral. But among Chinese exporters, a more serious tone. At a trade show at a southern Chinese shipping hub, firms are hoping the U.S. and China will strike a deal to lower the levies.
对于我们来说，伤害是很大的，因为我们主要的市场也在美国。
关税在调整，也是我们行业洗牌的一个过程，优胜劣汰。
As Trump's tariff policy continues to evolve, fears of a global recession run high. Many watching in anticipation, wary of where the trade battle between the world's two largest economies could go. Scott Huang and Joyce Sun for TaiwanPlus.
China has appointed a new trade negotiator as the country's tariff war with the U.S. escalates. Li Chenggang previously served as Beijing's envoy to the World Trade Organization. He was Assistant Commerce Minister during Donald Trump's first term. Li replaces Wang Shouwen, who had held the position since 2022. The change comes as the U.S. and China impose mounting tariffs on each other, with both sides refusing to back down. Neither Beijing nor Washington is looking to back down as the trade war between the two nations escalates. But hefty tariffs on Chinese exports are not enough to dampen the spirits of these Chinese manufacturers. E.C. Wells reports.
For these factory workers in eastern China's Zhejiang province, it's business as usual, assembling Christmas tree branches in the lead up to the end-of-year holiday. But these festive decorations might not be making it to the US this year. Like many in the region, this factory is focused on exporting its products outside of China, with the US as a valuable market. But the recent trade spat between Beijing and Washington has seen a brutal tariff of 145% imposed on Chinese products to the US. Yet these manufacturers are refusing to be disheartened by Trump's aggressive policy.
刚开始这个事情一出现的时候，我们这个行业确实是出现了一些比较悲观的情绪。但是这2天下来，大家更多的是一种团结的心，就是觉得我们不能这样被欺负，我们愿意跟国家一起度过这个难关。
And it's not just Guo who's glad China is fighting back. Elsewhere in one of Zhejiang's large wholesale markets, Wang Shuxue feels the same.
中国人都是比较团结的，既然国家要去打这个价格战，我们是全力支持的。
As China's powerhouse of production keeps churning, manufacturers say they will adapt and remain confident for the future.
我们已经慢慢的就是脱离了对美国市场的依赖。 开始开发了其他的市场。
我们的话就，以平稳的心态去看待这个事情，花一些时间去研发新的产品，调整一下，比如说针对其他国家的产品，这样子去，我感觉这个问题不需要去，太多的去考虑。
This isn't the first time that Washington and Beijing are at loggerheads. But now, the World Trade Organization anticipates an 80% reduction in US-China trade in goods. With manufacturing in places like Zhejiang still full steam ahead, it begs the question of which side is set to be hit the hardest in this trade war. Ryan Wu and Izzy Wells for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, Taiwan gets a green energy boost from one of the world's biggest tech companies.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, follow TaiwanPlus on social media.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Google has signed its first geothermal energy deal in Asia with Taiwan. Its plan with global developer Baseload Capital will add 10 megawatts of energy to the country by 2029 and contribute to Taiwan's net zero 2050 goals. For more on the project and what it means for Taiwan, Tiffany Wong spoke with Basalt Wong, Executive Director at Taiwan Geothermal Association.
What does it mean that Google's first geothermal energy project in Asia is here in Taiwan?
The geothermal energy is quite popular in Asia, like India, Indonesia, Philippines, and Japan. They all have tremendous geothermal power plants, but they choose the first one in Asia. They know the Taiwan government have permit the geothermal strategy and policy, and also they have data center in Taiwan, so they have promised the 100% renewable energy. 10 megawatt in Taiwan is just a very small part because they want to finish the project by 2029. But 2030, based on the Ministry of Economic, their goal, 2030 in Taiwan, we should have 1.2 gigawatt. That means 1,200 megawatt geothermal capacity in Taiwan. So 10 megawatt is just very small part. I think that's just a beginning.
Google is partnering with Baseload Power Taiwan to develop this geothermal plant, but all of its projects in Taiwan are in development so far. What challenges do you expect to see this project face ahead?
I think they must conquer some challenges that there's some local authorities, local government. I think that's a big challenge for them because in Taiwan, the geothermal laws is only included in the renewable energies law, so they're not protect the right to developers to develop a geothermal resource on the ground. So that's a big challenge for them because they will face a few competitors. They may choose the similar area as they choose.
Do you think corporate partnerships like this one genuinely support Taiwan's net zero goals, or do you think this is more about image than impact?
I think corporate partnership, I think is a very effective strategy in Taiwan, because some company they have technology, some company they have land. Corporate partnership is a very effective strategy because in Taiwan now we have to connect to global. They have more advanced technology that can utilize in geothermal and make the developer more low risk, low cost. I can imagine that it will be a very good impact for the future.
That was Basalt Wang, Executive Director of the Taiwan Geothermal Association. NVIDIA is facing a $5.5 billion setback due to U.S. export restrictions on its AI chips. Last week, U.S. officials told the tech giant it must obtain licenses to export its H20 chips to China, citing concerns they may be used in supercomputers. The multi-billion-dollar earnings hit impacted the company's stock, with its shares sliding about 6% after the announcement. The Philippines says at least one underwater drone captured off the country's coast sent messages to China.
It's very clear that these are used for mapping out the underwater terrain, collecting information, like what I mentioned, mathematic data. All of these have a use across different fields, to include underwater warfare.
Philippine military officials say the drones, which had Chinese markings, were designed to not be retrieved. Local fishers found 2 of them in 2022 and 3 more last year, all in waters the Navy calls strategically important. A massive and mysterious discovery off Taiwan's northeastern coast. A complete whale carcass washed ashore on Turtle Island. It was identified by the National Museum of Natural Science in early April as a fin whale, the second biggest whale species in the world. To understand just how unique this case is, our reporter Lauren Pattamore spoke with one of the world's leading whale experts, Dr. Phil Clapham, a cetacean biologist based in the U.S. state of Washington.
So this is the first time a fin whale has been washed up on the beaches of Taiwan. Can you tell us just how rare these whales are?
To my knowledge, this is the first confirmed record of a fin whale in Taiwan. There's not much effort there, sighting effort, so we don't really know what's going on, but historically they're not common. The Japanese, when they occupied Taiwan in World War II, operated a couple of whaling stations on the southern coast, and they were taking probably humpback and sperm whales, I'm not sure, but they did not take any fin whales, which actually speaks to just how rare these animals are in that area historically.
And so if they're not commonly found, can you give us any guesses as to how it ended up in Taiwan's waters?
These animals wander over thousands of miles, and so it's quite likely that fin whales on occasion come through Taiwanese waters. How this particular animal died, and if the length that was reported was correct, it would have been a very young calf, probably only a few weeks old. There's a couple of things that typically are threats to these animals and often are a cause of death. One is entanglement in fishing gear. There doesn't seem to be any evidence, for example, scars from fishing gear on this particular animal from what I've seen of it. The other, which is a bit more likely perhaps, is a strike by a ship.
That was Phil Clapham, a cetacean expert based in Washington State. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Before we go, we are heading to the Alps, where Swiss and Austrian climbers broke a 21-year speed record. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.